Alright, so my parts came in. I got a carburetor, gaskets, ignition coil, spark plug wire, some other little odds and ends. We're also going to be changing the transaxle fluid, and we'll get started. Alright, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to remove the transaxle diff cover. That's going to allow you to drain the fluids out of this. So you should remove these bolts here, and then it should come right off. Mine was a little bit stuck here with the gasket. I'm just noticing here, the bottom bolts are much longer than the top bolts. I guess keep that in mind if you take yours apart. Alright, so once you get the bolts off, the cover's ready to come off. Now you can see here it's quite stuck, and you could use a screwdriver to get it off, but you want to be careful not to ram the screwdriver too deep through it and make it gouge, which can prevent the gasket from being able to seal again afterwards. There we go. Oh boy. Oh, it's pretty clean looking actually. Very clear. Wow. You know what though? I think I'm gonna need to put a jack under the front of this to tilt it up a bit to try and get all that oil out of there. Everything in there seems to be in pretty good shape. I can't see any little chips or anything like that in the gears from here. It's looking pretty good. The little contact points you can see on the gears seems to show that it's wearing fairly evenly, I believe. So that's good. There is some crap in the bottom there. A little bit. I guess that's to be expected. It is like a 50-year-old machine. Yeah, I just got the filter out. You can see it's pretty old. It still has the International Harvester logo on it. They haven't owned Cub Cadet for quite some time now. I think since the late 70s or 80s or something like that. They were sold to MTD. So this might just be the original oil filter, or it was changed a long time ago. So it's so I would say it's due. Alright, it's a little tough to film under here, but as you can see, the oil filter here just goes around to the front of the transmission. I got the new one right here. I already oiled up the gasket, and I'm going to screw it in. Alright, so we got the filter installed, so next I'm going to fill the transmission back up again. Alright, so now I'm just going to scrape off what's left of the old gasket with a razor and some Scotch-Brite here. Get it all cleaned up. Alright, so I got the back plate cleaned up as much as I could. Pretty clean. I got most of the gasket off. So I have a new gasket here I'm going to put on. And you could use RTV, but since I was ordering parts anyways, I decided to get the gasket at the same time. Make life a little easier. So I'm going to put this back on. I'm going to remember those longer bolts went on the bottom with where they hit for the hitch. Start it with one bolt over here. And then I'm going to put my second bolt in here, make sure the gasket's lined up. longer bolts down here. See that yellow paint coming out a bit. Seems like the guy just painted it with a paintbrush or something, put on pretty thick even. I'll have to strip that off someday and paint it up properly. Probably maybe paint it yellow again. Or another interesting color if I can think about it. Snug them up with this. And use my actual ratchet here. Get them nice and tight. Try and do the X pattern here as much as I can. I don't think it needs to be too tight. Alright, let's make sure I got them all. Alright. Now you can just use your ratchet like this, and you can take the plug out. This is where we're going to fill it up. Now, for this, filling it up is pretty simple. You just fill it up pretty much until it's just about to overflow over here. That's all there is to it. It is a little tricky to get the fluid in there. It's a lot easier if you have a pump, but you could probably rig something up with a funnel and a hose to get in there too if you need to. Now I'm going to pump in the fluid using this oil pump over here. Normally it's used for refrigerant oil, but since I got it, I'm going to use it here to fill up this transaxle. Pretty good for differentials and all that too. I just use a 1/4 inch fitting on there, stick it in, and off we go. Alright, so we got it full now. So just when it's starting to just come out like that, that means it's full. And in case you're wondering, I'm using case high trans I got from my local case dealer. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start it up, move it back and forth, and I'm going to check the level again. Alright, so I just started it up, moved back and forth, no problem. Took a little while for it to prime itself again. But once the fluid was running, there's no problem. So I'm going to check the level. Yeah, see it's gone down a little bit, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fill it back up to the top. I'm not sure if that's actually necessary, but I'm sure it won't hurt anything. Alright, so we got it filled back up again and start to drip out. Put the plug back in. There we go. As far as I know, you don't need any Teflon tape or dope or anything on there. I think it seals it, no problem. It's not, fluid is really just at that level, so I don't think it's too likely to leak anyways. Alright, so I think I'm going to call it a day for tonight, and I'm going to come back tomorrow morning, and I'm going to change the carburetor, ignition coil points, condenser, and a few other little parts. Alright, so we're back today, and we're going to get started with replacing the carburetor. So I'm just going to turn off the fuel over here. And I've used this thing before, and surprisingly the original fuel shot here still works and doesn't seem to leak too bad. There's a couple of drops coming out when you're threading it in, but not too bad. Pretty surprising actually. But I'm gonna have to see if it's really gonna hold when I take the fuel line off. All right, get the air filter cover off over here. Little air filter there. All right. All right, so I'm gonna unscrew the air filter holder over here. Alright. To get the carburetor off, you have to use a flat tip screwdriver and a wrench to try and get those bolts turned off. And you're going to want to try and do that evenly to get the carburetor off. It's a little tricky, but if you take your time, it should come out right off. Alright, so you're just going to have to take the throttle linkage off and the choke. The throttle linkage is a little tricky. You're going to have that C-clip on the end, and you want to be careful not to lose it if you don't have another one, like I just did. And for the choke, it comes off pretty easy. You can just sort of, once everything's detached, it comes right off. Come with a new clip probably, so we'll see. Anyway, so here's the carburetor. It's the original one. Alright, so with the carburetor off, now we have access to the breather port. And actually, underneath that breather is where you could adjust the valve clearances. So let's go to this. Let's get this nut off over here. See if I have a socket for that. There we go. Let's pop this off. Alright, nice and easy. I think we should be able to avoid taking off the governor linkages. There we go. Comes off like that. You got your old gasket. I got all new ones ready to go. Good chance to clean all this out. Alright. Keep this and put this aside. There's a little rubber piece here. I don't think my gasket key came with one of these. Try to keep that. Take it out. Now this is like a little reed valve over here. And this is so the engine could push its positive crankcase pressure out when this flexes, and then when there's an intake, it's not gonna suck in any air. This piece off over here. This one's a little more stuck. There we go. You know what? For this one, it looks like the governor linkages are going to have to come off. I don't see how I'm going to clear that. There we go. Got it. Sealed gasket. Alright, so now we have access to the valves. The valve adjustment, I should say. So, you can see here, you got your intake and your exhaust valve. A little oily in there, not too bad. So you can see on the bottom is where you make your adjustment. So I'm going to get my feeler gauges out and we're going to see if they're within spec. Alright, so now we're going to we're going to check the valve clearances. So for the intake, which is on the right hand side, it should be 8,000 to 10,000 of clearance. So I'm going to take my feeler gauge at 8,000 and we're going to stick it in. And actually, it fits right in, no problem. Now let's see if the 10 fits in or not. And you know what? It doesn't fit in, so that's just, if I really force it, I can force it in. So we're good for the intake side. Now we're going to switch over to the exhaust side. So for the exhaust side, which is on the left side, we have our clearances should be from 17 to 19 thousandths. So I'm going to start right in the middle here at 18th and see if that fits in. And you know what? It does not. So that's right in the middle. I'd rather have it right in the middle at 18, so I'm going to adjust that. Alright, so to adjust the valve, we're just going to take our 1/2 inch key and we're going to put it right on the bottom here. Get in there. And then I'm going to take my 7/16. I'm going to adjust this top nut. Since I want a little more space, I'm just going to thread it in a little bit. Shouldn't take too much. Just do small turns like that. And test it. And you know what? It just goes in with some resistance. So I would say that's good. Okay, so we got our valves adjusted. All right, so we're gonna put the breather cover back together. So what we're gonna do is start with our plate over here, and you're gonna notice it says top over there, so you want it facing upwards like this. So put the gasket on that. Put it on. There. Get it in just like that. Next, we have our little reed valve. Put that back on. You can see the way it used to go with the little marks. We'll back on the same way. And you want to make sure it's blocking the two holes properly like that. Next we got our plate over here. Put that on just like that. Next we got this little piece over here. And then our little rubber piece that it's all gonna kinda hold it in. Hold it all together for you while you're working. And my kit didn't come with a new gasket over here, so this I'll have to reuse the old gasket for now so I can get a new one. Seems to be in okay shape, so I don't think this is gonna be a major issue. And then our last piece, don't forget you want to put this part on the top. Cover back on. That is basically all there is to it. Just gotta put the nut on now. Alright, so next we're gonna take the old points out. Alright, so here we got the points cover. We'll take that off, just two flathead screws. Gonna get that. Don't forget to don't lose your screws. Alright, so I've gone as I made a new wire to go from the points to the ignition coil. You see I cut a little notch in there so I can slide it onto the points a little easier. And I put the rubber grommet back on too. So let's get that installed. Alright, so I got the points reinstalled, and I'm going to get my feeler gauge out, and I want to measure 20 thousandths with the motor at top dead center. So there's a little set screw on the side of the points you can loosen to adjust the gap. So once that's adjusted, you should have the correct timing. Alright, so now that I set the gap, I put the cover back on the points, put the carburetor back on, and that's when I realized I had the wrong choke link on it. Yeah, I needed to switch it out for the second style they give you, which is a little triangle one. Now, you have to be very careful when you're removing the old one because there's a detent with a spring-loaded ball bearing in there that'll go flying out like you'll see, and that was not very fun to find again. So much better to do this on the bench. Alright, so we got the old choke plate off, and I believe this should just slide right. Oops, something just shot right out of there. Oh. So I managed to find my ball bearing, spring, put it back together. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put the fuel line on, but I'm also just going to add in a fuel filter just in case, because it didn't come with one, but I'm pretty sure this old tank has some particles in there I don't want getting into the new float. All right, so it's all back together now, and I guess we'll see if we'll start. First, just got to open up the gas again. Oh, boy. Hopefully that doesn't start leaking like crazy once it's opened. Seems like we get lucky. Oh yeah, you can see it flowing in there, all that debris in the bottom. Good thing I put that filter on there. Oh boy. Alright, let's see if it starts. I get the choke on. Now these carburetors for my safe tractors are supposed to be preset, so they should just start as is. I don't know about that one. Let's see what's going on. Alright, so the no start was just being caused by an issue with the points gap. It's just because I forgot the motor was no longer top dead center when I set them, so I just had to set that back, and it started up no problem. And so I guess my next video I'm going to start getting the mower deck ready since we're in spring. I'll see you next time.